Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group A, KAD2, Islamic Reformation Movement, and today we're going to present about compare the thought and approaches of Tajdid between Za'aba and Al-Attas. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Nurul Aisyati Radiah binti Zamashari, and my matrix number is 1191847. And this is my group members. First, Nur Adila Nazia binti Ahmad Sabudin. Second, Wan Amisara Safiani binti Wan Muhammad Zahid. And third, Nadira Tasha binti Nazaruddin. Before we go any further, let me explain about our table of contents for this subject. First, introduction. Second, the methods of Tajdid Al-Attas and Za'aba. Third, the concept of Tajdid by Al-Attas and Za'aba. Fourth, the contributions of Al-Attas and Za'aba in Tajdid toward Muslim. And the last one is conclusion. So this study is focused on finding out the comparison of the thought and approaches of Tajdid between Za'aba and Al-Attas. Under the thought and approaches of Tajdid between Za'aba and Al-Attas, there are 3 points which will be discussed in this study. Our 3 points will find out about what are the methods of Tajdid, Al-Attas and Za'aba, what is the different concept of Tajdid between Za'aba and Al-Attas, and what are the contributions of Al-Attas and Za'aba in Tajdid towards Muslim. This study is based on online sources such as academic journals, articles, books, online newspapers, and any other official websites and findings. So this is our problem statements. A study by Ramli and Majid, 2012, stated Tajdid is the effort to improve the understandings for the Muslims and the entire nation towards Islam, not to repair the teachings of Islam itself. As a revealed religion, Islam has been perfected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any changes made by humans will only impair that perfection, not improve it. Islam also does not need continuous improvement as thought it evolved with time. The perfection on the understanding of Islam is gained through changes on human, not on Islam itself. Therefore, in the context of Islam, a new thing must not change their religion. Instead, the interpretations and opinions have been to renew due to situational demands. Yet, it should not deviate from the meaning and the requirements of the arguments in the Al-Quran and Al-Sunnah. So this is our research questions. First, what are the methods of Tajdid Al-Attas and Za'aba? Second, what is the concept of Tajdid by Al-Attas and Za'aba? And third, what are the contributions of Al-Attas and Za'aba Tajdid toward Muslim? So we have 3 research objectives, which are to know the method of Tajdid Al-Attas and Za'aba, to know the concept of Tajdid by Al-Attas and Za'aba, and to study the contributions of Al-Attas and Za'aba in Tajdid toward Muslims.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wan Amisara Sofiani binti Wan Muhammad Zahid. My number matric is 1191848. Today I want to talk about chapter 2, which is definition of Tajdid, methods of Tajdid by Al-Attas, and methods of Tajdid by Za'aba. Definition of Tajdid. Tajdid is an Arabic word that means renewal. In official Muslim debates, this word refers to purposeful effort to revitalize religious faith and practice, with a focus on rigorous obedience to the Quran's prescriptions and the Prophet Muhammad SAW examples. Although there have been differences about the specifics, such as whether Muslim leaders deserve the title of Mujadid, the fundamental notion of the significance of renewal has remained consistent throughout Islamic history. Muslims accept the real faith and practice of the people have occasionally divided from the idea outlined by the Quran and the model of the Prophet throughout the history of the human community of Muslims. Next is method of Tajdid by Al-Attas. Al-Attas is one of the figures whose thoughts are still being debated and used to highlight Islam as a worldview in the modern era. In general, Al-Attas' underlying thinking is concerning the fall of Muslims in many living systems, particularly in the educational sector and the advancement of science. In his words, Al-Attas mainly focused on the idea of restoring the world of Islam as a worldview, carrying Islam's independence from reliance on Western civilization and the idea of desecularization. This is an attempt to merge Islamic science and restore the relationship between Islam and science. As a result, Al-Attas proposed numerous notions for renewal, including the Islamization of science, which is the process of deconstructing Western science and reconstructing it within the Islamic knowledge system. Methods of Tajdid by Za'aba. The details of Za'aba Tajdid concept can be separated into many distinct portions. The first is the base and main source of Tajdid adoption. In this regard, Za'aba viewpoint is consistent with what he is fighting for among present reformers who derive Tajdid from the traditionalist paradigm, which draw on Quranic and Sunnah resources. The second is the goal of Tajdid. We can identify some of the purpose of Tajdid from the observation of some of the viewpoint of Tajdid given by Za'aba, one of which is to raise the dignity of the Malay Muslim race, which is left behind in all aspect of life compared to other races to religious, social and political. The third is the Tajdid method for accomplishing Tajdid goals. In this regard, we can plainly see how Za'aba Tajdid methodological scheme seems correspond with what is championed by current reformists, which involve, among other things, the effort to pinpoint the source of Malay Muslim backwardness.
My name is Nur Adila Naziha binti Ahmad Sabudin, matric number 1191846. Now I would like to present the concept of Tajdid by Al-Attas and Za'aba. The first one, concept of Tajdid by Al-Attas. Education in contemporary Islam has deteriorated, not only in terms of curriculum, teaching content and teachers, but also in terms of philosophy and as its foundation. This degradation was primarily caused by colonialism. Muslim countries adopted Western education system after gaining independence. To address the issue, Al-Attas proposed a philosophy of Islamic education based on the Tajdid concept rather than the Tarbiyah concept. According to Al-Attas, the Tarbiyah term is insufficient to represent the concept of education in Islam. It is similar to the term Western education, which is derived from the Latin term educare, which has a physical and material connotation. Tajdid carries not only physical and material connotation, but also moral and spiritual connotation. Next, according to Al-Attas, education is the process of instilling something in human being. In this context, a process of instilling refers to the method and system used to gradually impart what is known as education. The term something refers to the content of what is instilled, whereas human being refers to the recipients of both the process and the content. Uh, and and then according to Al-Attas, concept of ta'dib as a system of Islamic education is the requirement for an individual to enter and graduate from university should be based not only on good result in formal scientific subject but also on moral criteria. The second concept is concept of Tajdid by Za'aba. In line with Za'aba perspective, some current reformist figures have emphasized the use of a blueprint approach rather than mere rhetoric. Where we can use some example to convey this approach. First, the approach of the Islamic movement in Malaysia, which carries out the agenda of their movement, must be accompanied by a comprehensive blueprint program that can be embodied in the form of an action plan. As a result, many Islamic businesses and institutions such as Bank Islam, Takaful, UIA, Kohilal, KBI, Taska, Taski and others have established themselves in Malaysia. The second example is the attitude of Malay reformers who act as a solutionist rather than opportunist, seeking the root cause of the problem and then proposing a solution to the problem. To clarify this, we can look at current reformist perspective on Malaysia's alternative development. In this regard, reformists have criticized the Western secular-style development concept that has been imposed on third world countries, including Malaysia. As a result, we can say that the majority of Za'aba view of Tajdid in the context of his time is consistent with the idea of Tajdid advanced by most Islamic reformers.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nadia Tasha binti Nazaruddin, number matric 1191834. I will continue this presentation with the contribution of Al-Attas and Za'aba in Tajdid, which contain the contribution of Al-Attas in Tajdid toward Muslim and the contribution of Za'aba in Tajdid toward Muslim. First, the contribution of Al-Attas in Tajdid toward Muslim. Al-Attas is popularly known as a great modern Islamic thought in the 21st century. He is also known as a great philosopher and Malay historian, which provides a lot of contributions in thoughts, historical studies, and Malay culture. Al-Attas' underlying notion is concerning the collapse of Muslims across many living systems, particularly in the educational sector and scientific advancement. His contribution can be seen clearly in his writing, which first purported to free Muslims from mysticism and mistake national cultural secularism and liberalism by Western ideologies. Second is stressing on Islamization in education of Muslims that influenced by secularism from Western civilization. And third, emphasize the importance of restoring the words of Islam as a worldview and preserving Islam's independence from Western civilization and desecularization. Based on his writing, Al-Attas attempts to reconcile Islam as science through the integration of Islamic science and proposes numerous notions for renewal, including first, the Islamization of science, which is the process of reconstructing Western science and reconstructing it into an Islamic knowledge system. Second, the notion of Islamic education, which is to develop a complete human being who is conscious of their identity and relationship with God, society, and nature. According to Al-Attas, Islamic knowledge is linked to epistemology, and the issue that occurs among Muslims is that contemporary science is recognized in current Muslim nations, where at that time Muslim epistemological awareness is quite poor. The epistemology by Western are based on secularization ideology, which is separate religion and knowledge, but in Islam, every second in Muslim life are related with religion, whether in knowledge, moral, work, etc. Al-Attas is about the renewal thought known as de-Westernization or Islamization, which is liberate from Western thought or purify something from Western influences. De-Westernization is the process of recognizing, separating, and isolating the secular elements from a knowledge base in order to change the form, values, and conceptual viewpoints of the content of knowledge as it is currently presented. The issue of current Islamic education at that time is severe because it causes the Muslim community's young generation to lose their genuine foundation of existence because their education is still a secular and materialistic way of life in them. They also will struggle in their lives, losing enjoyment and meaning. In conventional Islamic schooling, traditional Islamic education has offered real and correct information and education to its students. The personal achievement and pleasure of the individual in his life, especially in the hereafter, which is the ultimate goal of Muslim hereafter. Next, the contribution of Za'aba in Tajweed toward Muslim. His real name is Zainal Abidin Ahmad (1895 to 1973), which is popularly known as Za'aba. He is one of the Muslim Muda movement, and he is Za'aba also among those that develop and celebrate the concept of Tajdid and Islam ideas in his era. Za'aba was well known as active participation in promoting reformist ideas among his society's grassroots. He His contribution can be seen clearly, which is he wrote numerous essays about the progress of the primitive Malay Muslim community in local periodicals and newspapers between 1916 and 1918. He also briefly condemned the British government policies and the role of native collaborators that served as an administrative connection between colonial British officials and the local people. He also successful in organizing the Malay middle class and forging a national conscience against the British colonial forces through his publication. The emergence of Tajdid and Islam movement in Malay Peninsula in Sabah's areas are because first, the emergence of the other racial groups such as Chinese, Indian and Western secularization ideology in education. Second is the different socio-economic situation in Malay Peninsula that caused backward of Malay Muslim in education, economy, knowledge and jobs. Third, in the British colonial era, education was limited to the upper class or elite and they used the English language as a medium in teaching. One of Za'aba Tajdid ideas to uphold Islam among Malay Muslims is through education based on Quran and Hadith and revive Malay Muslim thought from archaic teaching to more intellect and rational thinking without disregarding Quran and Sunnah. Lastly, we can see the aims of Tajdid by Za'aba is restoring the dignity of the Malay Muslim community. Second, returning to and improving one's grasp of Islam to the real teachings. And lastly, to assist Malay Muslims with material and intellectual resources to counter the threat of Christianization. That's all from me. Thank you.
In conclusion, knowledgeable people can be good and beneficial person for society. However, as emphasized by Syed Naquib Al-Attas, in studying science, manners are very important. Through his books, he explains about Islamic education, current thinking, and philosophy. This approach is taken to prevent Islamic institutions from being out of date. Moreover, most of the views by Tajdid brought by Za'aba in the context of his time are in line with the idea of Tajdid put forward by most Islamic reformers. Za'aba's seriousness in obtaining Tajdid shape materials from the outside, which are embellished with a Malay touch, is very proud, and this should be continued by Malay Muslim scholars in the new millennium. That's all from us. Thank you.